Fueled by the notion of creating a better world for his kids, Taíno Bendz is an engineer, a yoga teacher, author, and public speaker on a mission to inspire others to change their digital habits so that they can live life more fully. He founded the non-profit Phone Free Day and conducted research on the effect of digital technology on people, which is featured in his book, Tech Life Balance. Taíno, welcome to the show. Great to see you.
Thank you so much, Brad. I'm excited to see you again.
Yeah, likewise. A lot's been going on, and I'm looking forward to discussing some of your personal evolution as well as the work you've been doing, your book. The link will be in the show note. But first and foremost, perhaps you can share a little bit about you and your journey and what makes you tick.
Definitely. So, it's funny when you get that question, where do you start? I like starting on the personal side of things. So I've got two young boys. And I think starting personal, is what, I don't know, shapes many people the most, but we tend to start with our profession, our education, and so on. So I've got two boys, aged 5 and 8, in a couple of days, and a third one on its way, which is super exciting. Live in Malmö, in south of Sweden, with my partner Astrid and the two kids, and we or who am I? I love, exploring myself, understanding more about myself, using life as a teacher, getting deep here straight away, but using everything that comes up as an opportunity to grow. I love being outdoors in nature. I love sports. I've got a background playing a lot of basketball. I love challenging both myself and others to look at things differently. So that's who I am. And I believe strongly in human connection, we're on this planet together, whether it's connecting from the other side of the globe as we are now, or just looking someone in the eyes on the bus or in the grocery store. I feel that we're in a challenging time. We have been for a decade or two. I think there's been a shift which we can go into as well. And I think the conversation you and I are having, the work you're doing, the work I'm doing, is really waking people up, in a sense, to okay, what's going on. Professionally, I've got a degree in a master's degree in civil engineering, and have worked in the technology sector for 10, 12 years or so, in a number of different sectors, as a management consultant in IT, now I'm in the water treatment sector as well as doing my own work. So I've got sort of two sides doing corporate work, leadership, business development, what else? All sorts of things. But then also my own passion around digital well-being, around human connection, around personal development and leadership, and kind of connecting the dots. I got a certification as a yoga teacher this year, and love also bringing both that philosophy, but also other things from yoga into the corporate world. So yeah, that's me.
Excellent. And I like starting with the why rather than the how and the what, because the why really is our families and the things we're really passionate about, our curiosity, our desire to grow and learn. Perhaps you can share a couple of your accomplishments. So, of course, your recent book, and I've seen lots of traction on LinkedIn, lots of people talking about it. I think it's really making waves, and it's timely because people are struggling, especially with digital well-being, and also the initiative that you created a few years ago.
Definitely, yeah. I didn't even mention those two. So yeah, I mean that started. It's been technology and the impact it's having on us has been on my mind for a long, long time. So growing up, I'm raised with a single mother, and we traveled a lot. She's very, very curious and very, so we traveled a lot to a lot of unusual places. So I got to live a year in Bolivia when I was 5. I spent half a year in Zimbabwe going to a local school when I was 11 or 12. We've been to the poorest parts of Africa. We've been to, South America, to all these different places. So that really gave me a sense of connection in some way, I think, with and also, okay, things, but also human connection and seeing how different things are. And why I tell you that is because I think that that's impacted me moving along. And when, 2005 and onwards, when Facebook came, when smartphones came, somehow I had all of my previous experiences in the back of my mind when this technology came in and sort of overwhelmed us. So, for example, I never got Facebook in the first place when it came out in 06, 05. And since then, kind of been on the outside looking in a bit, and also being very aware of the impact that it's having on us and how it's changed us and changed me for sure. So I did get a smartphone, quite early with everyone else, but all of that led to observing things, and then the initiative that you mentioned is Phone Free Day, which I started in, it's now 4 or 5 years ago, coming from a place of concern and passion about human connection, about, interactions and so on, and seeing how digital technology, and in this case specifically smartphones, come between that interaction and distract us from what's important to us in life. And I'm not coming in and saying that I have all the answers and this is right and smartphones are wrong, but when you look at it, a lot of people are experiencing this, and the traction that I'm really happy that created, or not happy. I'm well, not for me personally, but for seeing that what I put out resonates with people. In that way, I'm very happy that people relate and people are open to it. And I think that really shows that there is something there, that people aren't, we're not using these things in the way that really only enhances us. So yeah, so I started Phone Free Day, and a lot of people saying, "Oh, this is such a good initiative." I really just try to challenge people and inspire people to have one day where they would be more mindful of their phone use. And a lot of people tried it, and so that was really, really interesting. And since then, to answer your question about accomplishments, I mean, I'm really proud, I guess, about what I accomplished there. I'm not good at being proud, but I am proud that I could inspire others towards a better life, to be honest. Not trying to be grandiose, but that's what people report. And since then, deepening my own knowledge, doing some research with AUT and 2 universities in the UK, writing the book. I love being able to go out and talk to organizations, to people, and so on. So those are some of my proudest accomplishments in this field. Yeah.
Excellent. Why is digital well-being so important? And what are some of the stories people are telling you when they actually start to look after their digital well-being, or put in place some tools to just mitigate the risk of being constantly connected? So perhaps we could start with, why is digital well-being required?
Why it's required is because it affects us in so many different ways, some of which are super obvious and some of which are not so obvious, but when you think about them, they make sense. So in the book, I'm mixing research. I've divided the book up into 6 parts, which I guess is actually an answer to why it's important. So I kind of had all this knowledge that I've gained and stories I've heard and research that I've taken part of, and it's like, okay, how can I divide this up in a way that makes sense? And also answering your question, so why it's important is because it affects us in many, many different ways. For example, physical health. So, now looking at you, you look like you've got quite a good posture there. I'm kind of crunching down a bit, but bending over a laptop, neck, shoulders, there you go. Thumbs, eyes. So physical health is an aspect that most people can relate to straight away. The text thumb, the frozen shoulder thing, all of these things are sitting down for long periods. That's something like you can't argue with that. Hearing, when you talk to people when you talk to experts in various fields, they are really, really concerned. What's going on with our hearing when we have headphones on all the time, with our eyes and so on. Physical health, mental health, also quite obvious. Stress of being constantly available, stress of being able to work anywhere. It's affecting our sleep, which is connected to both mental and physical health. Affecting a lot of different things connected to our mental health. Relationships. Lots of studies being done now on how it affects relationships. If you have a phone on the table when you're talking to someone, it makes the conversation less enjoyable. It makes the food you eat less tasty, which might sound weird to begin with, but if you just think about it, like if you're using your phone, you're not really paying attention to what you eat, so makes sense as well. Now there's a lot of focus being put on what it does to parent-child relationship, and also kind of scary, but I try to turn it around and turn it into something, useful. Focus and productivity affects our focus massively, not only for office workers, but for any type of worker. I remember when I lived in New Zealand, there was a big fire in CBD in Auckland, and if I remember correctly, don't cite me, but if I remember correctly, it had something to do with a welder or something leaving a tool on to go check their phone or something like that. There was technology involved.
There was.
Whichever work you're in, whether you're doing office work or manual labor, it affects our focus and productivity. In the book, so that's 4. In the book, I also talk about family. We kind of mentioned it in the relationships, but what it does to child development and family. And then the 6th one, which is a bit out there, but is our connection with the planet, which might sound a bit strange, but to me makes so much sense. If we're more concerned with, the filter we're using on Instagram to get as many likes as possible, we're not paying attention to what's going on around us, to what's going on with the planet, with climate change. If we're more absorbed in this digital world, which we can create and shape however we like, literally in Minecraft, but metaphorically in other aspects of the digital world, it is taking attention away from the world around us. So that's, quite big how it affects us.
I like the holistic perspective because it does affect all aspects of being a human. And I've experienced this. In fact, I still experience this in terms of across all of those dimensions, actually. I think one of the scariest things is how addictive it can be. So the YouTube algorithm knows me so well, and every now and then I just get this overwhelming urge, let's just open up that little treasure trove and see what's inside of there. And without doubt, there's stuff. And I have to admit that a lot of it is educational. So I justify my usage because I go, well, I'm learning. So is that so bad? Although every now and then I watch some junk or something that the algorithm gives me that it's going to push a nerve somehow. What can we do in terms of developing some practical skills to just reduce our reliance on these tools? I mean, it's an amazing tool. It connects us. Digital technology allows us to do this, and I've had some of the best conversations of my life using tools like this. But I think it's when we use it deliberately, it's amazing. But what about that other side when it kind of uses us?
It sounds like a sci-fi movie from the 80s when you say that it's using us, but that's really what it's about. And you mentioned the algorithm and the services that we're using are developed to use us, to analyze what we're clicking on, what we're staying more time on, what we're doing to get us hooked. So I think it's fair to say, and I think there is a line, and you mentioned, justifying with educational stuff, and that's perfect. And a lot of people I talk to say, oh, but I use it for work, or I use it for this, or I use it for that, and that's perfectly fine. But if you look inside yourself, like you just shared, there is a line when you cross that. When you go on Instagram to post something for your work because you're responsible for the social media account, fine. And when you've done that, or before you do that, what happens? You scroll a bit. Ooh, that looks interesting. Ooh. That's perhaps on the other side. Or, for you, learning and education is great, but when and how much? You're about to put your daughter to bed, for example, and after our call, let's say you find something super interesting. You weren't supposed to go on there to learn at this point right now, but you find something super interesting, and and that's also like, okay, maybe the best thing there is to save that for later and do it the next day, but that doesn't release that dopamine. So there's heaps of things we can do, and I think the very, very first is starting to be conscious, starting to observe your current behavior, your own and others around you, and the impact that it's having. So, pick a day, just go about your day as you would, but be mindful of what you do. Okay, you wake up, probably your smartphone is in your bedroom as an alarm. You turn off the alarm, you quite likely to check it. And now when I say you, I'm talking about, in general.
Yeah.
People are quite likely to check it. And so what does that observe? Okay, what does that do to me? Well, that actually starts my day in a reactive mode. I've got 3 text message. I've got an email from my boss. The news. 3 people killed in a mass shooting. Horrible. But all of this information that just comes over us as a wave and just hits us in the face in the morning.
Yeah.
Okay, you go out. So I won't go about the whole day for people, but observe, observe. Oh, okay. I'm checking news at breakfast and my child is talking to me. Okay. I'm in the car and there's a red light and I pick up the phone. Oh, wow. All these things. I something that comes up a lot of time, people are really, really receptive and open to my message. Some of the things that pop up are the one you just said with education. Another one is podcasts, or like using podcasts or music to block out other things to be able to focus. Observe that as well. What's going on? Okay, I'm in a noisy office environment, so I use these headphones to block out sound. Okay, but it also means that I'm pumping input in 8 hours a day. Quite stressful. Also maybe not good for my hearing. So it's like, yeah, first thing, observe and observe the impact it's having, and or could have. you're out with your friends having dinner, and harmlessly people pick up their phones every now and then. Just, reflect, observe. What's this doing? Someone disappears away. They're there. I always say you're there, but you're not there.
Mm,
You're at another dinner with someone else
yeah.
on your phone. Talk to someone about going on a honeymoon. If you take some examples to the extreme, it becomes kind of funny, but also very telling. You go on a honeymoon with your loved one, newlywed, and you have all these people with you on your honeymoon, because you're taking photos, you're sharing on there, you're looking at what other people are doing. So you're on your honeymoon, but you're actually not there, because you're at your friend's vacation in somewhere else, looking at what they're doing, and oh, their meal actually looks nicer than our hotel. Um, yeah, long answer. You can tell already, but listeners can tell I'm passionate about
Mm,
it, even if it's 7 a.m. here.
mhm.
Um, there's lots and lots of things, and I love, which was the other part of your question, when people just share their stories, and how this can empower them.
Yeah. I think that's such an important part of it is when you get that proof that you can change your habits and that you can actually make more conscious choices. We and the benefits for other people in their own lives, that's a strong way to convince others. And that's all, thank you for initiating Phone Free Day and your book to help people understand the importance of this and to gather those stories. It's interesting. I've been on a few holidays over the past few years, not really, like a few slight holiday, and you go to these landmarks and no one's looking around anymore. People are just taking selfies and walking off. And you go, look, I mean, there is so much magic in the world and you're missing it just so that you can take a selfie and then get out of there and go to the next place. I'll never forget, it struck me when I was at Niagara Falls. And there were these people who walk up, just pose for a selfie and walk off without actually even looking over that fence at this giant waterfall, you know, just flowing. I'm looking there and you get that weird feeling like, shall I just jump and see what happens? I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but
Oh, yes.
it's very weird. But people are just not present. And for me, that ability to find presence, I think that's what's missing for many people, because even just a few moments, if it's once in your life, maybe that's enough. But if you can get that a couple of times a day, it really changes everything.
What great story, Brad, and thanks for sharing that. And I've had the same observations many times. One of the most one that pops up is in Pompeii in Italy, the volcano that
Mm,
erupted over a whole city, and you've got people lying, molded in, and exact same thing. Have this intense experience of being there, think about what it was like, and people come in and don't look, just like you say, they just. So, but I had a question for you, Brad.
mm,
Why is that, and for someone listening or someone who's done this, why is that, why do you think that's bad, or what do you think that's doing to them, and why is presence so important?
great question. I just think that life is short, and the one experience that I would prefer people not to have is regret. So you get to the end of your life and you go, and it's interesting. I don't know if you've read or heard of that book, the top regrets of the dying, something along those lines. A lady wrote this wonderful book, and she's captured the what most people say that they regretted about their life. She goes into palliative care, into hospices, places where people are in their last days, and she captured it. And it's an amazing book. And it's all things like, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. I wish I hadn't worried so much about what other people thought about me. I wish that I had spent more time with my family. And I've got a strong suspicion that if that book was rewritten in 20, 30 years, it'll be, I wish I'd spent less time on my phone. because ultimately it doesn't give you fulfillment. So the two things I think are important are, one, fulfillment. What can we do that's going to infuse a little bit of meaning into everyday life and our activities? And that's different for everyone. There's so many ways to find fulfillment. And the other one is, how can I reduce my level of regret? And by doing those two things, I think that you can find presence and live a more meaningful life, whatever that means for you. It might just be, I'm a better parent, or I'm better at my job, whatever that might be, or I'm better at my creative activity. So I think that's why it's important. And in my own experience, there's great joy in those few moments of presence. I get it when I go for a run. You know Mount Maunganui quite well. I run up Mount Maunganui, and although I listen to a podcast on the way up, I stop, listen to nothing, and it's almost a relief. You get to the top and sit on a rock and just stare out at the ocean, maybe try and meditate for a few minutes, and run down, maybe with some music or just with nothing happening. And it's amazing. And I'm not trying to be, say everyone should experience that, but for me, it's those moments that really brighten up my own experience of life.
Beautiful.
Mm, mm. Yeah. What brings you fulfillment?
When you asked who are you, and I started talking about the kids, I think they are the masters of, living present and also fulfillment and joy.
Mm,
So I learn a lot from them. And what brings me fulfillment, but it's being a good father, a good parent, a good role model, and also things at work, seeing people grow and evolve. But what the kids have taught me is that you can find fulfillment in anything, on the way to school or preschool, and you find a stick, and maybe not fulfillment, but joy. You can become totally absorbed in something. Just being fully present. I think you're totally right, and that is something magical. And just seeing, I mean, what you and I are doing now, we take it for granted now, but just 20 probably years ago, it would have been impossible or cutting edge. Like, what? You're having an interview with someone in Sweden in New Zealand? That's
mm-hmm.
amazing. So I think I mentioned this in the book, we've become, I call it innovation numbness. Now, things come out all the time. You got to watch that you can have a phone call in. You can do. So I think joy and sometimes fulfillment is just looking around and like, wow, what is going on? It's, what a magical place we're living in, really, with all its catastrophes and challenges and so on, but still the human experience. And fulfillment is, for me internally, is growing, So it's fulfilling to experience things and have the experience in a different way than what I would have 5 years ago, and seeing how I've grown. The situation might be exactly the same, but my reaction is different. What's that about? Who is really in here, if you, depending on how you look at things, if you get, body, mind, spirit, or if you just on the body, mind, wherever you are, whatever it's not really believe, but, wherever you are on that, I think it's fascinating to start exploring, that. That's fulfilling to me. Observing myself, observing situations around me, but also what I a bit talked about, seeing change in others and seeing them have, I guess, kind of the same thing. When you stop being, for example, so absorbed in the digital world and start going back, like, wow. I mean, I've had people tell me that I might be exaggerating a little bit now, or paraphrasing, but that I basically saved their marriage. So I had someone come and say, I've got such a better relationship with my partner now when we have so I say, okay, I saved your marriage. No, but, whether it's that or whether it's, I get so much more work done now thanks to your
Mm.
advice, or I sleep much better, or I have, enjoy life more. I'm less stressed. That's also fulfilling.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell me a little bit about your inner journey, and this probably connects quite closely with your journey as a yoga teacher. Something I would love to do. It's been on my radar for a long time. I've practiced yoga since I think I went to my first class in 2007, and I came out. I felt like my entire body was vibrating. I'd never experienced that moment of presence. It all came from the short Shavasana meditation at the end. And it was along with the movement, it was like a dormant part of me had been switched on. And I've gone ever since. And it's become just, it's no longer, oh, I need to go to my yoga class. It's just part of what I do. It's non-negotiable, which is what I think is the ultimate place to be for these types of things. When these practices are just non-negotiable, they're part of your life. So I thought, well, why wouldn't I just teach it? But I'd love to hear your perspectives on that journey.
Definitely, and amazing. Thanks for sharing that. And if you would have told me that you are a yoga teacher, I wouldn't have been surprised. So I think go for it, and we can have Taino and Brad's yoga
Let's
sessions.
do it.
Um, but yeah, no, I think my inner journey is a lot about the first thing when you said what's your advice on the digital side, observation, and that's been my inner journey, and it's a lot of what yoga is about, and observing this state that you come in, which you might have been in before. If you run a lot, you work out, you're out in nature, you do all these things, but ending, like you say, with, in this case, Shavasana, lying down and just observing, brings that presence and, oh, what's this feeling?
Mm,
And I think, people experience it regularly, but don't pay attention to it, or they're not there. My inner journey is a lot about observation, reflection, seeing how I react to external stimuli, introducing a short break between input and my output,
mm,
and conscious choice. If there are so many good practical examples that people can relate to. If I'm in traffic and someone honks at me or just turns out right in front of me, so I have to slam the brakes, what does that do to me? It's a situation that occurred, and I have a choice. I have a choice. I mean, you should drive safely, and if someone does something, you can, mark it. But for a lot of people, including myself, that could ruin my day. You're on your way to work, someone drives like an idiot in front of you. You carry that with you. You become,
mm,
physically tense in the car. You come to work and you share that. And you talked about vibration. I think whether people listening to this are into yoga or not, they can relate to. You have this tension. You come to work, oh, I had such a bad morning. This person drove out, they almost da 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 da. And that's what you put out. Um, you put that out. What if in that situation you don't? You just, oh, like I said with observing our tech behavior. Oh, wow, that was dangerous. We almost crashed. What an idiot. Maybe I flash my lights, because being being aware and in a state of, I guess, inner calmness doesn't mean you become a doormat at all, but it becomes taking control over your state. So that's what I'm working so hard on, day in and day out, and trying to teach the kids. It's a superpower that no one can ever take away from you. You can
mm.
take away everything, but you cannot take away your power of your inner state. I haven't read this book that I'm about to mention, but Viktor Frankl, one of the survivors from the Holocaust. Um, oh, I got goosebumps saying that.
Mhm.
Man's Search for Meaning
Mm.
is about how he survived when so many around him didn't, and how, and basically, again, I haven't read the full book, but my understanding is that it's about what I just said, that you can take away everything, and in that case, literally everything, but no one yet, maybe we'll get there with digital tech, but no one can go into your brain and say how you react to things. Oh, it's so unfair, this happened or that happened. Well, it's up to you how you react. So it is a superpower. I'm telling the kids, easy example there, not that any of them have been bullied yet, but someone says something to you, oh, Brad, silly, braddy, daddy, I don't know what people call you, braddy daddy. Maybe that's a cool name actually. But
I quite like it.
yeah, okay, someone said something mean to you.
Yeah.
It's up to you, with full respect to kids that have been bullied. I was, and when I was in low primary school, it's super hard for the parents of bullied children. But what if we can teach you become immune to external circumstances? And in our situation, yours and mine, or adults, it's like you can keep your inner state regardless of what's going on outside. So that's my my journey, which I find so challenging, fascinating, but also helpful. And you asked me about accomplishments, and if I look back at the past year, I don't think that I would have been able to do some of the things I've done without that. I would have fled. I would have been like, this is too tough. I'm fleeing. Whether it's situations at work, so I'm doing my own work, with a book and presentations and so on, but I also have an employment. Different situations come up, and it's like, okay, can I keep my inner state? Can I observe? Can I choose how I act rather than reacting and impulses that are triggering things in us? And our brain is amazing, but it's also very energy efficient. So it has all these shortcuts, neural pathways that are, I see it as paths in a forest or on a grass field where we've walked on the same path over and over again. So when someone does cut out right in front of you, your brain straight away goes, oh, what a because it's the easiest, it's the path of least resistance, kind of. So yeah, long answer to that, but that's my inner journey, and parts of it I try to, when people are interested and open, I try to introduce parts of it. And with these worldly examples, I think a lot of people are open to it. Yoga still has this mystical, is it a religion? Is it, what is it? I mean, a lot of it is in the Western world. It is growing, opening up a lot, but it's still the philosophy part. And if you start talking about, spiritual stuff, a lot of people straight away react. And that's what I love. And I guess also brings me a bit of fulfillment, connecting, saying, okay, what I just said is management theory and ancient yoga knowledge, and it's the same thing.
I love that. I love that, connecting the ancient wisdom and spiritual traditions, because there's wisdom in them. Many of them are a form of science. People tested these ideas for thousands of years, and then merging it with the evidence. So you can go, here you go. On Viktor Frankl, highly, one of my favorite books. I'll put the link in the show notes for those who haven't read it. And I think there's a quote, and I'll get it slightly wrong, but it describes exactly what you're saying, which is, between stimulus and response, there is a space, and in that space lies our freedom. And to me, that's what it's all about. It's just stopping, having that self-awareness, which you talked about at the beginning, to just check in and go, hold on, am I running that same old script, running through the forest, as you said, on that pathway that we've practiced, or do I have another option here? And it's interesting, in the work we do in resilience at the Resilience Institute, we talk a lot about tactical calm, how to bring your nervous system to a state of calm deliberately, because what we practice, we get really good at. So if I practice a lot of anger, from anger being a short emotion, a few minutes, becomes a mood, as you said, several hours, the whole day is ruined. And if you practice that for several days, weeks, months, you become an angry person. So yeah, I think there's a lot of wisdom there, and combining the different approaches as you are, it makes a lot of sense.
So cool
Yeah.
that you I'm not surprised that you had read it, and that quote, I've heard it in other areas as well,
Mm.
and it does, there lies so much in it, which I think most people can use. I mean, put to practical use in straight away, basically. Whether it's with your family or at work or in a meeting or whatever it is.
Yeah. I find it really inspiring talking about this. And something that occurred to me is maybe because it's really hard to be both conscious and self-aware, especially in the beginning while you're just trying to manage your digital consumption. Diets, as we know, are not always successful. I think I read 96% of diets don't work. But what does work is a lifestyle. So imagine just putting more instances where you can't have a phone into your daily routine, like a yoga class. Now, suddenly you're 1 hour per day is free from that device. That's one of the things I love about it. Another thing I love is this kind of session or in-person sessions when I'm with people, because you don't have your phone on you. So maybe that's a tactic people could use, is to insert more activities into your day where phones are just not allowed. And maybe part of that is setting some rules for yourself. In this context, like I don't, I've done this, and this is terrible to admit, but taken my phone into the shower, balanced it up there so that I could continue listening to a podcast just in case I miss out. I mean, that's terrible, right? That's
I
digital
love that.
addiction. I'm
Yeah.
an addict.
Yeah. But I think, you mentioned diet, and there's a woman in Australia talking about digital nutrition. And as with
Yeah.
diets, it's much easier to bring in things than exclude things. So instead of saying don't eat sugar, you say eat eat 10 carrots a day. Eat every day, you eat 10 carrots. And if you do that, you won't have any space for sugar. So same thing here. Instead of saying don't, focus on the negation side, on what you shouldn't do. Don't use your phone at dinner. Don't use your phone for an hour. You say go to a yoga class, or go run in the forest without your phone, or what we focus on, on the actions that we're performing.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Always a pleasure. I can't believe an hour has almost passed. As always, we're going to have to do a long in-person session. Any plans to travel to my side of the world in the near future?
Plans, no. Desires, oh my god, yes.
Yes.
We I mean, New Zealand is a has is in our hearts, and we often talk about when we're going back. No plans now, and with a baby on its way, no, doing that here, but definitely coming over, and definitely we'll do something epic then, running up
Oh,
Mount Manganui, some yoga class up there, or a podcast, or in person, or event, or something.
I look forward to it. It'll be fun. Any thoughts, any final thoughts for people out there listening? How can they connect with you, and any last words?
I love connecting with people, and ironically, best place is LinkedIn, and then we can find other venues. Um, I just, inspire some hope in this. We won't dive into it. We can do that another time. VUCA. Have you heard the term VUCA world?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So we're volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous term from the, I think, the American military.
Yeah.
We are, it's not, so, okay, ending on this note, there's nothing wrong with you, people listening to this. There's nothing wrong with you. We're living in a very challenging time in a lot of different ways. Technology is a part, but there's also things going on international level and national and local and global and everything. It is a complex world, and this term VUCA, I think, is from the late 80s. So if I'm not quite sure exactly when. So what do we do? How can we handle that? Rather than being a victim of circumstances, start taking control of your, and this is something anyone can do. Doesn't cost money, doesn't, require any going to a mountaintop and meditating or going to an expensive class. It's something anyone can do, which is to take control of your inner state, and as you beautifully quoted, finding that space between input and reaction, and yeah, slowly growing as a person and having a healthier, happier life.
I love it. Thank you for the work that you do. It's wonderful to get to spend some time with you. So thanks also for your time. And I will make sure that all the links are in the show notes, so people do go and connect with Taíno on LinkedIn. And I look forward to doing this again already.
Same, Brad, definitely.
Excellent. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next session.